Picture the scene. It is the morning of July 8th, 1947.
Right in the middle of that stifling, dusty New Mexico heat.
Exactly. You're in Roswell, and this young military officer, Lieutenant Walter Hart, sits down at this heavy mechanical typewriter.
He's the public information officer at the base there.
Right. So his commanding officer has just walked in, given him an update, and told him to draft a press release. So Hart starts clacking away at the keys. And that single piece of paper goes out to the wire services. And I mean, by that afternoon, the headline has gone completely global. The United States Army Air Forces have officially recovered a flying disc.
Which is just, I mean, it's the kind of definitive, earth-shattering announcement that makes the entire world hold its breath, you know, an official confirmation from the U.S. military.
But then comes the whiplash. Because exactly 24 hours later, a second press release goes out.
Right.
And it completely contradicts the first one. It essentially says, never mind, it wasn't a flying disc at all. We made a mistake. It was just a weather balloon. Case closed.
And that precise 24-hour window, that sudden jarring pivot from we have a flying disc to it's a weather balloon.
Right.
That is the genesis of what is arguably the most famous and definitely the most contaminated mystery of the 20th century.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive into the source material today. We've got this massive stack of documents, declassified reports, case study notes, and our mission today is to just cut through, 78 years of cultural noise?
Yeah, almost 8 decades of it.
We're ignoring the movies, the theme parks, the alien Halloween costumes. We want to isolate the hard, verifiable facts of those 24 hours.
And I want to speak directly to you, the listener, for a second here, because it really doesn't matter if you're coming into this deep dive as a hardened skeptic or a firm believer. Today is solely about stripping away the rumors and looking at the raw signal.
Right.
Because when you actually examine the verified timeline, and more importantly, the credentials of the people involved, the historical reality is much stranger than just, a simple mistake in the desert.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting right there with the people involved, because I'm trying to wrap my head around this initial press release. If I see something weird in the sky, I might panic, right? I might jump to conclusions. But Roswell Army Air Field in 1947, it wasn't just a group of random recruits, was it?
No, far from it. That base housed the 509th Bomb Group of the 8th Air Force.
Okay.
And you really cannot overstate the importance of that specific unit in the summer of 47. They were the only military unit in the entire world capable of delivering nuclear weapons.
Wait, so these are the men who literally handled the atomic bomb?
Yes. They were entrusted with the most destructive technology in human history. The level of security, the training, the scrutiny applied to these guys was totally unprecedented.
Wow.
They did not panic. And crucially, they were the ultimate experts at identifying things in the sky. If there was a single group of people on the planet who could immediately tell the difference between an experimental aircraft, a radar target, a standard weather balloon, and something truly anomalous.
It was them.
Exactly. It was the 509th.
That context completely reframes the whole discovery for me. I mean, imagine the most elite, high-tech bomb squad in the world suddenly being completely baffled by the remains of a party balloon. It just doesn't track.
No, it doesn't.
So let's look at the guy who actually found the debris. W. Mac Brazel. He's a rancher working the Foster Ranch, which is roughly 75 miles northwest of Roswell. And a few days before that famous press release, he drives into town and walks into the office of Sheriff George Wilcox.
Right.
And Brazel says he found this massive debris field scattered across his grazing land. The source notes describe this wreckage in very bizarre terms, like super resistant tinfoil that wouldn't crease, highly elastic rubber strips, strange broken wood beams, and a thick, almost parchment-like paper.
Now, what really stands out in Brazel's own words is his certainty. I mean, he later told reporters flat out that he had recovered weather balloons on his property before.
Oh, he had?
Yeah, he knew exactly what they looked like, how they felt, how they shattered. This material, whatever it was, it behaved entirely differently. The physical properties just didn't match conventional atmospheric gear. It was baffling enough that this pragmatic working-class rancher abandoned his chores and drove for hours just to alert the authorities.
And Sheriff Wilcox takes him seriously enough to call the military base. And given their nuclear status, the base doesn't just send, a couple of privates to poke around the dirt.
No, they send their absolute top intelligence officer,
Right.
Major Jesse Marcel.
Right.
And his professional background is essential to understanding what happens next. Marcel wasn't just a desk clerk. He was a highly decorated veteran of World War II. But more importantly, he was a man who had personally been present to observe the atomic bomb tests at Bikini Atoll.
So his entire professional life is built on accurate, objective observation of extreme physical phenomena.
Precisely. His whole job was to look at the unimaginable, document it clinically, and report back. So Marcel heads out to the Foster Ranch with Brazel, and he spends hours in this debris field. He collects the shiny wreckage, the indestructible foil, these strange metallic-looking I-beams.
Yeah.
But on his drive back to the base, he does something that completely breaks military protocol. But it makes total sense on a human level. It's the middle of the night, and he stops at his own house.
He wakes up his wife and his 11-year-old son, Jesse Marcel Jr. Now look, speaking as a parent, I can tell you right now, if you wake an 11-year-old kid up at 2 in the morning, you had better be holding a literal alien spaceship, or there will be hell to pay.
That is a very fair point.
A torn up weather balloon is not going to cut it.
Right, but he spreads this debris out on the kitchen floor for his family to see. And Jesse Marcel Jr. remembered this night vividly for the rest of his life. He specifically recalled handling those metallic I-beams, which he said were about 12 to 18 inches long.
Right, the I-beams.
Yeah, and the detail he really focused on was the inner surface of those beams. He described these geometric, almost hieroglyphic-like symbols printed on them. He originally thought they looked Egyptian, but on closer inspection, they were just incredibly strange, repeating geometric patterns.
And Jesse Marcel Jr. never wavered on that. He repeated this exact specific account for 35 years until he passed away. But, you know, I do want to pause and challenge this a little bit because neuroscience tells us a lot about how memory actually works.
Yeah.
There's this process called memory reconsolidation. Every time you recall an event, you aren't just playing a video recording in your head. You're pulling a file out of your brain's cabinet, reading it, and then basically rewriting it before you put it back. Over decades, memories get contaminated by the context around us, by movies, by suggestions.
Absolutely. That is a very real, documented phenomenon. Human memory is highly malleable.
Right. And Major Marcel himself later embellished parts of his military record in his older age. But this is what I keep coming back to. Do you really rewrite the foundational memory of your father, a serious military intelligence officer, waking you up in the dead of night to touch weightless, indestructible metals on your kitchen linoleum?
It's highly unlikely. The peripheral details of an event, they might shift over decades, sure. But the central, high-emotion core of an experience like that tends to anchor itself deeply. And Marcel Jr. never changed his central testimony.
That distinction is crucial.
It really is. And what Marcel brought to his kitchen that night is exactly what he brought to his base commander the next morning. Which leads us to the decision that ignited this entire 78-year firestorm.
Colonel William Blanchard. He commands this nuclear-armed unit. He looks at the debris Marcel lays on his desk. He immediately orders the ranch cordoned off, and then he turns to Lieutenant Hott and tells him to issue that flying disc press release. I'm really struggling with this leap of logic here. How does a guy with the nuclear codes mistake a weather balloon for a flying saucer?
He doesn't. Men in Colonel Blanchard's position do not make careless public statements that could incite national panic. They do not authorize a global announcement about recovering a flying disc unless the physical evidence sitting directly in front of them defies all conventional, classified, and terrestrial explanations that they possess.
But just hours later, the story flips completely.
Right.
The debris is loaded onto a plane and flown out of Roswell to Fort Worth Army Air Field in Texas. Suddenly, General Roger Ramey and a weather officer named Irving Newton hold a press conference. They declare to the press that everyone just got a little too excited. It's a weather balloon radar target, nothing more. Newton even points out that these exact radar targets are used at 80 different weather stations across the country.
And to solidify this new narrative, they invite the press in to take photographs. These become those famous images of Major Marcel crouching in an office looking completely defeated, surrounded by some crumpled foil, balsa wood sticks, and what is very clearly a standard radar reflector.
But Marcel maintained for the rest of his life, right up until his death in 1986, that the material in those Fort Worth photographs was completely swapped out.
Yes.
He insisted that the stuff on the floor in those pictures was absolutely not the strange, lightweight material he had recovered from the ranch and shown to his son.
And yet, for nearly 50 years, that weather balloon story was just an unyielding wall. It was the official position of the United States government. Until 1994, when the Air Force finally published a comprehensive report admitting that the weather balloon story was, in fact, a lie.
Okay, so the government admits they lied to the world, but they didn't admit to a flying saucer, did they?
No, they admitted to a massive top-secret cover-up known as Project Mogul.
Tell me about Project Mogul, because the details in our notes here are just fascinating.
It was a highly classified black-budget operation during the early days of the Cold War. The military was floating these massive, elaborate trains of balloons, sometimes hundreds of feet long, equipped with acoustic sensors high into the stratosphere.
Acoustic sensors? Wait, for what?
The goal was espionage. They were trying to listen for the sound waves of Soviet nuclear tests happening on the other side of the planet.
Wait, stop. How does a balloon floating over the desert in New Mexico hear an atomic bomb going off in Russia? That sounds like science fiction.
I know, but it's actually brilliant physics. It relies on something called the deep sound channel, or the SOFAR channel. In our atmosphere, there's a specific altitude where the temperature and air pressure hit this perfect sweet spot.
Okay.
If you release low-frequency sound waves into that layer, they don't scatter in all directions. They get trapped in that channel, and they can travel globally without dissipating. So, theoretically, a balloon in that channel over New Mexico could pick up the acoustic signature of a Soviet atomic test thousands of miles away.
That is incredible. It's like whispering into a tube that wraps entirely around the Earth. So one of these highly sensitive balloon trains crashes on the Foster Ranch. And when you look at the physical evidence, Mogul actually seems to explain it perfectly. The FIPA-resistant foil and the balsa wood sticks match the radar reflectors they attach to these balloons.
It goes even deeper than that. Project Mogul perfectly explains the hieroglyphics that 11-year-old Jesse Marcel Jr. saw on the I-beams.
Yes, the tape. Explain the tape, because this blew my mind.
So in the years immediately following World War II, there were massive material shortages across the country. The military engineers working on Project Mogul had to be incredibly scrappy. They outsourced the construction of some of the radar targets, and the contractors used whatever they could find, including leftover adhesive tape from a toy company in New York.
A toy company?
Yeah. And this toy tape had gold, flower-like geometric patterns printed on a purple background.
So what a kid in 1947 thought looked like alien writing was actually just floral manufacturer's tape from a Manhattan toy company, because the military was operating on a scrappy post-war budget.
Precisely. It's a beautifully historically grounded explanation. We have to treat it fairly because it's a very coherent answer.
So, what does this all mean? If the government admits they lied, but they lied to protect a massive Cold War espionage secret one that perfectly explains the debris, the metallic foil, the strange tape, the military panic, and the sudden cover story, doesn't that just neatly wrap up the entire mystery? The cover-up was absolutely real, but it was just a spy program.
On the surface, Project Mogul is an incredibly satisfying answer. It makes logical sense of the physical debris on the ranch and the immediate need for intense secrecy. But when you examine all the source materials in our stack, there is one glaring anomaly that Mogul simply cannot account for.
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
Project Mogul perfectly explains the balloon. It does not explain the bodies.
Ah, the bodies. Now, we have to tread very carefully here, because this is where the mythology really gets tangled with the facts. When people think of Roswell bodies, they think of that grainy alien autopsy video from the 90s, which was a proven hoax.
Exactly. And the honest accounting of this history is crucial here. In the immediate aftermath of July 1947, not a single primary eyewitness on the record mentioned alien bodies.
Really? None of them?
None. Those stories did not emerge until decades later. They often came from elderly witnesses, sometimes as inconsistent deathbed confessions, with wildly conflicting details about the location, the number of bodies, what they looked like. We cannot, from an investigative standpoint, treat those late secondhand rumors as proven facts. We shouldn't ridicule them, but we can't present them as verified.
But there's a massive exception to that rule, isn't there? The most significant piece of late testimony doesn't come from a random secondhand rumor. It comes from the man who was sitting at the typewriter, Walter Haut.
Yes, the public information officer who drafted that very first flying disc press release. For 60 years, Haut kept a strict oath of silence that he had sworn to his commanding officer, Colonel Blanchard. He lived his life quietly in Roswell and said almost nothing publicly about the incident.
But in 2002, he did something extraordinary. He wrote and signed a notarized affidavit, and he had it legally sealed with strict instructions that it was only to be opened after he died. He passed away in 2005, and the affidavit was finally published in 2007.
Right.
And the details inside it are Honestly, they stop you in your tracks.
They really do. It's the emotional and investigative heart of this whole case. In this sworn posthumous document, Holt claims that Colonel Blanchard personally took him to a heavily guarded hangar on the base. Inside that hangar, Holt says he saw a metallic egg-shaped craft, about 12 to 15 feet long, with no wings, no windows, no recognizable features.
And the bodies?
Yeah. On the floor nearby, partially covered by a tarp, he described 2 bodies. He noted they were about 4 feet tall, with disproportionately large heads.
He also described a staff meeting where that supposedly indestructible foil from the ranch was passed around a table from man to man, and absolutely no one, including the commander of a nuclear bomber group, could identify what it was.
Holt ended his affidavit by stating his absolute, unwavering conviction that what he observed in that hangar was a craft and crew from outer space.
I need to just sit with that for a second. We aren't talking about a blurry photo or a third-hand rumor from someone seeking attention. This is the official public relations officer of the base, swearing under oath, knowing he would be dead when people finally read it.
Exactly.
But again, to play devil's advocate, could an 80-year-old man have just internalized the pop culture version of Roswell over 60 years? Like we talked about with memory reconsolidation. Could his brain have just filled in the blanks with the mythology he lived around?
It is a completely valid concern. We have to acknowledge the immense power of cultural contamination, especially living in Roswell. But you also have to weigh that against Holt's lifelong discipline. This was a man who had every opportunity to cash in. He could have told a dramatic story on television or written a best-selling book for decades, and he actively declined.
That's true.
Furthermore, he didn't just casually jot this down in a diary. He went over the 2002 affidavit word by word, sentence by sentence, with his daughter Julie. He was incredibly intentional about what he was legally leaving behind in the historical record.
And the detail that I just can't shake is that Blanchard personally walked him into that hangar. You do not drag your public relations officer into a top-secret facility to show him a crashed acoustic weather balloon.
No, you don't.
Which brings up a glaring question. If there was a craft and bodies and a major military operation, where is the paper trail? Flight logs, accident reports, internal memos. The military tracks everything.
You would think so. In the mid-90s, at the request of a congressman, the General Accounting Office, the GAO, actually conducted a formal, exhaustive search of government records regarding the Roswell incident. They went looking for that exact paper trail.
And what did they find?
They found that the records had been destroyed.
Destroyed.
Yeah, and not through proper archival channels. They were destroyed without any known authorization or documentation of their destruction. Out of all the administrative files from the Roswell base in 1947 regarding this incident, only 2 government records remained.
Wait, how is that even possible?
The legal implication is profound. Army regulations in 1947 legally required that all air accident reports be maintained permanently. There were no exceptions. Yet for the event that triggered the most significant high-profile military response in the history of the Roswell base, absolutely no accident report exists. It wasn't classified. It wasn't filed under a different project name. It is just gone.
You know what this reminds me of? The Rendlesham Forest files we looked at in a previous deep dive.
Yes, exactly.
It's the exact same paradox. The most significant reality-bending, anomalous military events mysteriously generate the least amount of paperwork. The files just vanish into thin air.
Which brings us to the incredibly difficult task of synthesizing all of this for you, the listener. If we pull back and look at the honest summary of Roswell, we have to admit that it is the most contaminated UFO case in history. It's buried under 78 years of fabrications. The Majestic 12 documents were hoaxes. The alien autopsy film was fake. The town itself is heavily commercialized.
But when you strip away all of that noise, an undeniable factual core remains untouched, the actual signal.
Right. An expert intelligence officer brought baffling debris into his kitchen to show his family. A commander of the sole nuclear bomber group in the world authorized a global flying disc press release. A total 24-hour narrative reversal happened. An officer kept a strict oath of silence until leaving a posthumous, legally sworn affidavit about bodies in a hangar. And permanent, legally required government records vanished without authorization.
In wrapping this up, I think the most important takeaway is that these facts don't explicitly prove a spacecraft crashed in the New Mexico desert. We aren't saying that. But they do make the government's explanations, even the incredibly logical, scientifically sound Project Mogul explanation, feel fundamentally incomplete. Because Colonel Blanchard had the wreckage sitting right in front of him. He knew what classified weather gear looked like, and his very first instinct wasn't to hide it. It was to tell the truth to the world.
Think about the implications of that. If the military's initial instinct in 1947 was total transparency, think about the specific moment, the specific phone call that changed the protocol to absolute secrecy. What exactly shifts in a military command structure to turn a policy of tell the press immediately into a 78-year labyrinth of missing files, swapped debris, and sealed deathbed affidavits? The real mystery might not just be what crashed on their ranch. The real mystery is how quickly we decided the public couldn't handle it.